The UFC has a strong reputation for keeping only the best of the best MMA fighters around the world. But for every fight, there has to be a winner and a loser. And even when the very best in the world begin to stack up a losing streak, Dana White appears with his magical shovel to shove them through the exit door and out of the promotion. So in this video, we're going to be talking about 5 famous UFC fighters who we believe Dana White is going to cut pretty soon for their losing streak. You might be surprised by the fighters on this list, so sit back, relax, and let's get to our countdown. Number 5 on our list is Cynthia Calvillo. Apart from being the UFC woman crush of almost every young teenage boy out there, Cynthia Calvillo was once the powerhouse in the UFC's strawweight division. Calvillo got into the UFC back in 2017 and was immediately labeled as the next big thing by many pundits of the sport. To be fair, she did have an amazing run, getting wins against Amanda Cooper, Pearl Gonzalez, and Joanne Calderwood. But in a very sharp turn of events, her shining lights of glory got shut by the current women's strawweight champ, Carla Esparza, who ended her win streak at UFC 219. After getting her first loss via unanimous decision, Calvillo also tested positive for taking marijuana before her fight with Esparza. If you ever thought nothing bad could come from taking a blunt, Calvillo just proved you wrong. She was subsequently suspended by the United States Anti-Doping Agency, USADA, for 6 months, but the suspension was extended to 9 months by the big bosses, the Nevada Athletic Commission. From there, Calvillo's UFC career has had many highs and lows, like the notes of an a cappella. For the highs, she had victories over Marina Rodriguez, Jessica Ai, Courtney Casey, and Poliana Botelho. But for the lows, she struggled with making weight at the strawweight division. And after she moved up to flyweight, she couldn't keep up with the heat and ruthlessness of the fighters there. Now she's on a 4-fight losing streak, and we can't even tell if she'll ever recover from this streak of losses. Our best guess is that the UFC books her for one more fight, and if she loses, she might have to pack her bags and move on to another MMA promotion. Number 4 is UFC heavyweight Augusto Sakai. Now, no jokes here, people, but how does a guy go from having 11 finishes in 17 fights to 4 straight losses in 2 years? Brazilian Augusto Sakai was that guy we believed would be the John Jones of the heavyweight division. And look, the first thing you should consider is that this guy was a heavyweight. Like, how many guys are ever this dominant in the heavyweight division? You'd hardly ever see a heavyweight like Augusto, because number 1, there aren't so many men that big who are very good in MMA, and 2, any man that big might prefer American football or basketball. So for a guy to be this big and dominant, you don't need us to tell you he was a threat in the division. He was a bigger threat for the fact that he had gone through other MMA promotions like Bellator, Immortal FC, and Golden Fighters, clearing through all the big names there without breaking a sweat. After showing his dominance in those promotions, Augusto, who felt he had the power of 1,000 Hercules flowing through his veins, decided there was one more promotion to conquer, and that was the UFC. Having his first UFC headline fight in 2018, Augusto actually ran through his first batch of opponents like a beast. From how he handled those guys in the octagon, there was no way on earth we could have guessed what would happen next. After going 5-0 in the UFC, one man finally came forward to shut down the hype on Augusto Sakai. That man was Alistair Overeem. Alistair Overeem showed the world that if Augusto had the power of Hercules, he was Zeus himself. He got a clean finish via TKO against Augusto at UFC Fight Night 176. This was Augusto's second MMA career loss, but maybe what made this loss so different for Augusto is the fact that it ended just like he had ended a number of fights before, via TKO. So maybe Augusto couldn't deal with having a taste of his own medicine. Maybe Alistair beat him so hard he developed PTSD from the elbows and punches of Alistair raining down on him, or maybe he just completely lost it. Whichever case it was, the loss to Alistair sent Augusto crashing down the heavyweight rankings, as he took one loss to the next. Now he's on a 4-fight losing streak, and if we're being honest, his glory days might be far past him. He may not be as dominant as he used to be, but we don't want to make the mistake of writing him off. He's just 31, he's still in his prime, so maybe he can refuel his hunger to be at the top of the division once again. To also refuel our hunger to keep making these videos, you should scroll down, hit that like button, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the latest MMA news. Come on, just hit that button, it's right in front of you. Number 3 on our top 5 countdown is Rafael Assunção. Rafael is a little bit different from other fighters on our list. Unlike our last two, Rafael has actually broken his losing streak. If we go back to 2010, we saw Rafael come off one of the worst losses any fighter could have and transform it into one of the most solid records many fighters dream of. Can you imagine how devastating it would be to lose your first fight in a promotion, let alone a promotion like the UFC? Like, come on man, no one ever wants that. But it happened to Rafael Assunção. He fought Eric Cook back in his first UFC fight at UFC 128, but ended up with a loss. Not just any loss, a knockout. Cook wanted to send Rafael packing his bags out of the promotion even before he settled in. But Rafael, being the all-time great he is, came back after that loss with a surreal 7-fight win streak. But again, he somehow crashed his streak like a Bugatti crashing into a Walmart store and is now 1-4 in his last 5. No offense, Walmart. Now, where does Rafael Assunção stand? Well, we can't say for certain what the UFC has planned, but Rafael might have 2 more fights to test himself. Oh, and if he loses them, then it's Dana White with his mighty suspension shovel, scooping Rafael far away from the UFC. Number 2 is Tony Ferguson. We bet you didn't see that one coming, right? Well, you should have, because whether you believe it or not, the UFC's patience with Tony Ferguson is slowly running out. Tony Ferguson is a living legend in the UFC. He's a former interim UFC lightweight champion and the guy with the longest win streak in the lightweight division. However, as his winning streak was broken, so was his ability to win fights. One of the greatest fighters of all time lost his magical touch in the octagon. He's now on a 5-fight losing streak, with the most recent coming from the hands of another legend, Nate Diaz. Thanks to Hamzat for that one. But the big question is, will the UFC cut Tony Ferguson? Well, the answer is probably no. You don't just cut a legend like that, do you? UFC President Dana White also confirmed this at UFC 274 when Ferguson lost to Michael Chandler. He said he didn't have plans to cut Ferguson even if he had a 5th loss, which Ferguson now has. At the end of the day, he's a legend who we believe the UFC wouldn't want to let go of just like that. And besides, he's a fan favorite. The fans absolutely love him. But it's only a matter of time before the UFC calls it quits with Ferguson. But that might take a while, because our number 1 guy has a higher losing streak than Ferguson or any other fighter in the history of the promotion. This guy is on the wrong side of history, holding 8 losses in his last 9 fights, with 1 no contest. His name is Sam Alvey. And we know the question you're asking right now is why he's still in the promotion, right? Well, the best explanation for that is Sam's stance on anti-union, which conforms to the UFC's goals. Apart from that, we really don't know why he's still around. He fought in the welterweight, middleweight, and even light heavyweight divisions, but for some reason he hasn't won a fight in over 4 years. Now, Sam's only job is to fill up cards and be a stepping stone for other fighters to ascend the rankings of the light heavyweight division. Did we miss any fighters? Let us know what other fighters you think the UFC should cut in the comments section below. Also, make sure you check out either one of the videos showing on your screen right now. They're super awesome, so click any of them and we'll see you there.